CNBC-TV18, embarking on a quarter century of excellence.
Banks and NBFCs are in a huddle after the Reserve Bank of India tightened rules for investments in certain alternate investment fund schemes. The central bank has given a 30-day deadline for liquidating investments in AIF schemes, which have investments in debtor companies. To simply explain, the RBI has found transactions where banks have evergreened their loans by lending to an AIF. The AIF then lends to the bank's borrower, and the borrower then repays the bank. Responding to RBI's action, Chairman of TVS Capital Funds, Gopal Srinivasan, called the RBI guidelines an impractical solution to a genuine problem. Speaking to me in an exclusive conversation, Gopal Srinivasan said that RBI must hold consultations with the industry to find a solution.
This is a move which RBI has taken, I'm sure, after very due thought and consideration. There have been reports, and factual I would believe, where certain NBFCs have used the AIF mechanism to evergreen their loans. And SEBI has also brought this up, and now RBI has acted on it. So should RBI act on this? I think the answer is yes. The industry is more concerned about the manner of the action, the modality of the action, rather than the action itself. So I think I am concerned because what this basically says is that wherever there is any investment in an AIF by an NBFC or a bank, they either have to make sure that none of the investee companies have anything to do with that bank, or if not, they would have those investments, or if not, they would have to make 100% provision in the books of the bank. Remember that banks have already made a provision of close to 275% as per the specific risk and market risk requirements of RBI for investments in AIF. So clearly, we think that RBI should have a consultation with the industry, as SEBI has done often on this issue, and find solutions. And we have certain solutions which can address the genuine concerns of RBI.
Right. Mr. Srinivasan, do you feel that it is the timeline that is being given by the RBI which is the most challenging part that could impact the manner in which alternate investment funds function?
I think 30 days timeline is obviously not very practical or impractical. I also think that the manner of implementation, what are we dealing with, Parikshit? We're dealing with potentially what is, in a fiduciary sense, a conflict of interest between the investor and the AIF or the sponsor and what AIF is doing. I think the materiality test which RBI has put originally, saying 10% is the maximum of an AIF that a bank can take, can be also introduced for NBFCs. At 10% investment, no investor can influence the behavior of the NBFC, of the AIF. So I think what we really would like to see is two things. One is to bring in the 10% rule for NBFCs also. Second is wherever the investment is less than 10%, leave it as it is. Third is to basically exempt the developmental financial institutions like NIIF or SRI fund or NABARD fund or the SIDBI fund of funds for startups in which banks have invested from this ruling, because those are developmental capital. I think these three steps is what we would strongly recommend that be done, along with the fact that they can say that no bank or NBFC should be a sponsor of an AIF. These measures may be a better and a practical solution.
Do you also feel that if the current structure, the circular, has to be implemented in the present form, will that impact lending to the startup ecosystem? Or which segments of the industry and business do you think will be the most impacted as a result of this circular?
I think primarily, Parikshit, the entire shockwave would be in the largely domestically funded AIFs. For example, TVS Capital is a 100% rupee capital fund. We have very limited amount of money from the banks. We believe 5 to 10% of the domestic capital comes from banks, let's say between 20 and 40,000 crores, somewhere in that order, out of the 8 lakh crores of AIF pooling, in which about 4 or 5 lakhs is domestic. So this is what we believe. So the message in domestic capital would be very adverse. But Parikshit, I would like to pause and say there is a whole category of funds called credit funds and venture funds. These are largely designed towards getting money from banks because they're very aligned with what bank treasuries need. They would be severely affected. In turn, their ability to unwind or their ability to raise future funds would be affected. So I am actually living in a world where I believe this will actually be paused and modified is what I think is a practical solution for this. I do not think this can actually be implemented, or if it's done so, it is going to companies. For example, imagine we give money to a startup, and then we go and tell the startup, the condition is you shall not take money from, let us say, for example, State Bank of India because they are an investor, or ICICI or HDFC. It is a very impractical thing. Normally, if HDFC had given us money, we would tell our kindly open an account with them or borrow from them, isn't it? So just imagine this is an impractical solution to a genuine problem.
All right, this is impractical solution to a genuine problem. That's the word coming in from Gopal Srinivasan, chairman of TVS Capital, on the latest RBI circular on alternate investment funds. So let's see what happens in the days to come. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of News Center. More news and updates continue right here on CNBC-TV18.
CNBC-TV18, embarking on a quarter-century of excellence.
For more news and updates, all you need to do is follow CNBC-TV18 on all of our digital platforms.